And then we've got a
Potholer,
real
can I just
life.
very quickly mention we've run up to the 2 hours. We normally overrun by up to 30 minutes or so. Are you happy to stay with us for another?
Not, yeah, not a problem at all. No, that's
Okay,
fine.
JR, it's over to you, but please be quick because there's another 2 or 3 people I've got to fit in. JR. You can unmute your microphone now, JR.
And you notice that DPR did this in the middle of my sentence. He always
I'm
does.
sorry, Owen, back to you before we go to GR.
And then me.
GR? Okay, I'm sorry. JR, you're going to have to wait a second. We're going back to back to Owen, then to Thunderfoot. I'm sorry, it's 3 o'clock in the morning for me. Forgive me if I'm not keeping up to speed.
I told you.
Owen, then
now,
Thunder.
Everything that I just told you about how bad Texas is, you have to remember that this is in the good times. This is in relatively good. But you're talking about global warming. Global warming is serious. It's very serious. And the answers, all of them, are not answers anybody likes. And when they try, and anything from the typical Republican perspective that they want to do under normal circumstances, they face the reality of global warming that requires a level of responsibility they are not allowed or able to accept. And that's why you're getting so much pushback. They will push back to the absolute limit and probably kill themselves before they admit that there's a problem that they actually have to address with the hard answers that they have to address them with. And I'm done. Go ahead.
Thunder.
Yeah, like they say, there are no theists in hospital waiting rooms, but like Potholer was saying, hell yeah, let the bastards secede this time.
Okay, on that note, let's try and see whether JR has unmuted his mic. JR.
All right, you should be able to hear me now.
We can hear you perfectly.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. Potholer, it's good to finally talk to you face to face. I heard something. There's this AM radio station in Sacramento where I live, AM 770. They have all sorts of weird Christian stuff all the time. And this one time I heard this one guy. I've only heard him one other time, which happened to be today. And he sounds like he's 118 years old. I don't know what he's doing still breathing, let alone still broadcasting on the radio.
Harold Camping.
That's what I was going to say.
Maybe it's the power of prayer. Maybe it does work. Anyway.
He said one of the strangest, most ignorant things about climate change I've ever heard, and I actually can do a decent impression of him. He sounds like this, and he was saying Al Gore thinks that carbon is causing global warming, but what Al Gore doesn't seem to realize is that all life is carbon-based. And I noticed when I saw him last, he looked kind of fat, like he's been gaining weight. If he really thought carbon was the problem, he'd lose weight. So he'd have less carbon in him.
Oh dear. That sounds as impressive an argument. And I swear, I heard this argument from a creationist when I said, okay, global flood. And we've got where did the water come from is the first problem, but then where did it go? And do you know what his answer was? He said, well, maybe we've drunk it all.
Wow.
I don't know. There comes a point.
Balance, I think.
There comes a point, does there not, where you cannot dumb down sufficiently in order to engage these people, and that is a problem, I think.
Well, you remember DPR? We spent an hour and a half with that one kid arguing about what the word "true" means.
Was it truthful Christian?
No. It was a guy that wouldn't accept that you could prove anything to be true. That it was impossible to objectively verify anything.
But at the same time, he said he could objectively state as fact that his God existed.
Yes, as a subjective impression, he says is objective.
With these people, the best thing is to say, well, then I have no way of proving that I'm talking to you. I've got no way of proving you're there, so I'm wasting my time.
I can't prove that I'm here.
But, I mean, Peter, I think that is a very good response. But if there is an argument to be won here, and I think it's an important argument, what is the solution to engaging people that are so thick? Jay, I'm going to remove you as Potholer answers that. But thank you very much for your call. Potholer.
Okay. As I said to an earlier caller, I mean, I think asking questions is the best way to get people to think. One of the problems I find when people are arguing, and these arguments go around in circles, is but they tend to disintegrate into he said, she said kind of arguments. And I mean, I've had this from experience of interviewing people, and I've done loads and loads of interviews, and I've always found that interviewing people is a really great way to really drill down to the nitty-gritty of what they're thinking. And when, for example, I have people who don't accept climate change who come and talk to me and message me, and I'm not interested in arguing with them and saying, well, you're wrong because this and this reason. I'm interested in asking them questions and saying, okay, why do you think that? Where did you get this from? And how do you know this? And finding out exactly why they think the way they do. And you'll find that the more rope you give people, the more rope they will have eventually to hang themselves, because they'll tie themselves in knots. And you don't end up then in an argument situation where you're just toing and froing with an argument, which gets very heated and normally ends up with ad hominem. So, I mean, with somebody like this, you'd say, okay, well, if he thinks that the carbon accumulation of the human body is something to do with climate change, ask him to explain exactly what that means. You can't do that, obviously, JR, with the radio program that you were listening to. But if you meet someone that's stupid, show up their stupidity, let them discover how stupid they are. There's no good telling them they're stupid. Stupid people don't know they're stupid. Let them discover their own stupidity by asking them questions. Say, okay, well, how does that affect climate? And eventually they'll come to the point where they're having to make stuff up. And if they're making stuff up, then you can ask them how they know this. But I always just feed them a lot of rope, ask them a lot of questions. Eventually they'll hang themselves. Now, they may be too stupid to even understand that, but there will be an inkling of self-doubt, perhaps, that hopefully
I would hope so. And I would also encourage those who are in any form of discourse with a theist who is claiming his God exists, to start by getting them to describe their God. What is its nature? What is its character? What is its physical attributes? How does it work? And as soon as you start doing that, I think you'd probably agree, Paula, that it becomes pretty clear that they've not really thought this through, and the holes in their beliefs are readily exposed. I think Oren wants to come back in.
Yeah, and I live in Texas, and that's going to probably be my question for potholer. I mean, you've been to all these different countries in the world. I mean, have you been to Texas, and what can you tell me about the level of stupidity on average for other countries, besides where I am? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I haven't been to Texas. I've been up the East Coast, from Miami up to New York. I know that area very well. So I've been in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, beautiful part of the world. But yeah, I have met some people who, it was quite a shock to me, being brought up in England, where you just don't meet people who have these kinds of beliefs. All of a sudden, to be in the United States where I was being confronted by this, it was kind of odd. But having the accent that I do, I found that got a lot of attention anyway. That seemed to be the main topic of conversation rather than anything a little deeper.
Yeah, well, you get into places like, some little gas stations in North Carolina, you're not going to get any conversation that goes any deeper than that. And I'm sorry to say that it's in a lot of places in Texas are that way too. It really disheartens me that we have so many people who have no level of interest or curiosity, that they are incurious as a norm here in Texas. And there's no way that you can affect that. There's no way you can awaken people's minds in many cases.
I think that does come down, as I said earlier, to the spatial environment they live in. I mean, you look on the horizon in Texas and all you see is Texas. And you live in a community where everybody thinks the same way you do. There's no interaction of thought. There's no, I mean, we had the Age of Enlightenment in the 18th century in Europe. And if you lived in France, you would be a very provincial person, but news would come from other parts of Europe. It was, people were traveling, people were experiencing, in Europe, you can walk for a day and you'd be through about 5 different countries, 5 different cultures. And unfortunately, I think it's that spatial distance that means people don't need to interact. They don't need to look at thoughts beyond what they find in their own very, very closed environment.